Welcome to Fairy Tale Flip. My name is Vanessa Y. Rogers, and I'm the hostess of Fabric of Folklore podcast. And I am collaborating with Donnelly Fields from Doorways to Learning, and we are collaborating in this podcast to look at do a monthly podcast about a fairy tale. We're looking at the historical context, and we're diving deep into the fairy tale itself to talk about its significance and its hidden meanings. And so one of the ways that we are wanting to engage with our audience members is to present them with options for what fairy tale we will be delving into on our monthly podcast. And so in February 2024, we are presenting a couple of options, and I will be presenting you with the donkey skin today as one of our options. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a synopsis rather than read the whole story because it's actually quite a long story. The story is written by a French author, Charles Perrault, and the story revolves around a king, his beloved daughter, and a magical donkey who has this ability to produce golden crowns and golden louis, who is obviously very beloved by everybody because he produces riches and you don't have to do anything in return. The king himself is respected and kind, and he marries a princess who becomes his queen, who is also equally kind and beautiful and well loved by everybody. And they have a daughter that is so wonderful that they see no need for any other children. She's gifted and virtuous and chaste, all the things that they would want in a princess. Until one day, the queen falls fatally ill, and no matter what remedy the king tries or whoever the king brings in cannot save the queen. And so on her deathbed, she requests the king to not remarry unless he finds a princess that is as beautiful as she is herself. And the king, who is grief-stricken, promises to follow her wishes, but later on begins to be pressured. After the queen has died and everyone is still in mourning, the council is telling him he needs to marry because it is important for the sake of his successors. But the king, in his grief, goes insane, basically, and he believes himself to be his younger self, and that his princess, his daughter, is actually the woman he had courted before, his queen, and begs his own daughter to marry him in his unwell state. And the princess says, "No, I cannot marry you. This is an unnatural marriage. It would not be right. It would not be virtuous." But the king speaks with his druid priest, and the druid priest, seeking favor, encourages the king's delusion, and instead of helping him to regain his sanity. The princess then consults her fairy godmother for a solution. The fairy godmother, the lilac fairy, says, you cannot marry your father, but I have the answers. You must ask him for a dress that is impossible for him to find. So ask him for a dress that is the color of weather. And the king says, "Okay, I will do anything you ask." And so he returns with a dress that is exactly the color of weather, and it's beautiful. So once again, the fairy godmother says, "Okay, ask him for a dress the color of the moon." He won't be able to do that. It's impossible. But the king then produces a dress the color of the moon. And once again, the fairy godmother says, "Okay, he cannot find a dress the color of the sun." But once again, the king is able to produce a dress that is stunning and beautiful, and everyone agrees is the color of the sun. The princess is so distraught and goes back to the fairy godmother and says, "What can I do? What can I do?" And the fairy godmother says, "He will never, no matter his insanity, he will never kill his beloved donkey who gives him riches on a daily basis. Ask him to have a dress made, ask him for the skin of the donkey, of his beloved donkey." And the princess does so, and the king, in his insanity, follows the request and actually has his beloved donkey killed and gives the skin of the donkey to the princess. Now, the princess doesn't know what to do at this point because she feels like there's nothing for her to do except for escape. And the fairy godmother helps her to do this. And so she covers herself in dirt and soot and puts this donkey skin on her. And she tells her, you must walk as far as you can, get as far away from the kingdom as you can where you won't be found. But here is my fairy godmother wand, and I will keep all of your beautiful dresses and jewelry and everything that you belongs to you in this chest. And anytime that you want it, you can tap this magical wand, and your things will appear. Now go quickly before anyone finds that you're missing. And so the princess disguises herself, and she comes across this farm, and they take her in as a kitchen maid. And she's made fun of by everybody there. She's despised and said that she's ugly. Um, and they call her Donkey Skin. That's the name that they give her. And the princess is safe, but she's sad because no one wants to be ridiculed. No one wants to feel like an outcast, and no one wants to feel ugly. And especially this princess who is actually beautiful. And so one day she decides that she's going to use this magic wand and become beautiful only on holidays and on Sundays. So on holidays and Sundays, she on holidays and Sundays she makes herself into a beautiful princess once again, and she on one of these days, a prince comes by and looks in a keyhole and sees this beautiful princess. And she does not see him, we don't think. Um, but when the prince asks about this kitchen maid, he's told not to bother, that her name is Donkey Skin, and she's horrid and she's ugly. And so the prince goes home and falls ill, and he is heart sick. He is on, basically on his heart. He looks like he's on his deathbed, and his mother, the queen, says, "What can I do to make you feel better? How can I save you?" And the prince says, "I need a cake, and the cake needs to be made by Donkey Skin." And so the queen does what he requests and has a cake made by Donkey Skin. And that day, Donkey Skin was wearing her beautiful princess attire and was made the prince, the king, the prince a cake, but one of her rings, either intentionally or unintentionally, falls into the cake batter and is baked in. And so when the king receives the cake, he eats it with such ferocity, he nearly chokes and dies on the ring, but he pulls it out and he sees how beautiful and dainty it is. It's an emerald ring, and he kisses it, and he says to his queen, his mother, "I want to marry whomever this ring belongs to." And so the mother calls all the females in the kingdom and says, "You must try this ring on to see if it fits you, because you will get to marry my son if it is actually yours." So princesses and duchesses and baronesses and all the rich folk, beautiful women come and they try it on, but it does not fit their fat fingers because the princess had small, tiny, dainty fingers. And so finally, kitchen maids and scullery, uh, the lowest of the low women of the kingdom are also called, and at last Donkey Skin comes, and she is in her beautiful attire underneath her donkey skin. She puts on the ring, and everyone gasps. They cannot believe that it belongs to this creature. And then she removes her disguise, and it is revealed that she's actually a beautiful princess. And um, and so her fairy godmother, the lilac fairy, descends, and she tells the story of how the princess became um, the this donkey skin scullery maid, and they decide that they must have a wedding immediately, but she has to the prince has to get approval from her father, the king. Well, luckily for her, the king has regained his sanity and has remarried someone that is not his own daughter. And he comes and he approves and he says yes. And they have a beautiful wedding. And everybody who's anybody arrives at the wedding and celebrates their union, and the young couple's love is so strong it is celebrated for months, and the prince is then crowned, and the love endures between the two forever and ever, and they live happily ever after. So that was Donkey Skin. So if you have listened to this story and you like this story and this is the one that you want us to talk about further in detail and see how what the historical context is and the different meanings behind the story, make sure that you vote for this one. And there will be a poll on my Facebook group page, Fabric of Folklore group, and you can vote for whichever story you prefer there. Thank you so much for joining us on Fairy Tale Flip Storytelling Time. And until next time.